we are live right now. Thanks and welcome everyone for joining us today for this second meetup of our community, the remote movement. Pretty excited to be here again. Today we have 437 signups already. Around 100 people are online right now. More of them might join and stream in. So it's great to be again in touch with you all of you guys. And we have three special guests today. So we'll be introducing them as well over the course of this meetup. I hope you all can see my screen. Uh, this is 10th Jan, and we're doing the second meetup today. Uh, so this is what I said. We already have 400 registrations, and last week we also created a Twitter handle. I'm pretty happy to also see that around 125 followers have already joined us on Twitter. So pretty much looks like remote is the hot thing right now in 2020. A lot of people want to get into the remote work arrangement in 2020, and it feels great to be a part of the community and get the community to the next step. So a lot of people ask us different questions. So in the chat section also, there are a lot of questions around what is this meetup about? What is CutShort about? What exactly are we doing here? So I just thought I'll set the table here and explain what exactly are we doing here? Who is what is this community and what is CutShort and how things actually look like for you. So the first thing is this is a community meetup. The community name is a remote movement. It aptly captures the trend for the next 10, 15 years about a big shift happening in the professional industry where uh, traditional jobs where we have to go to office every day, those will be replaced in some way, in some form, by remote jobs where people have to people can work do a full-time job without going to office every day. So this is a community for that, for people who want to be a part of the remote movement. And this community aims to help them out as they traverse the journey from exploring what remote is to finding and applying for jobs and to be successful at it. So the whole journey about from nowhere in remote to working successfully at remote. That's what this community is all about. And this community is run by CutShort. So if you are not aware of CutShort, it is an AI recruitment platform which is used by 10,000 plus companies in India. Most of them are startups, and they have closed more than 10,000 positions so far on the platform. And we have more than 400,000 users who have signed up on the platform as of now. And remote companies, as I said, this remote movement is an initiative by CutShort. So we plan to play a big role in the remote space in 2020 and beyond. So we are planning to bring more and more remote companies options for people who are using CutShort to look for the next opportunity they have. And we are going to get the jobs. And as I said, not just get the jobs, but we want to solve the whole remote puzzle about how to actually get your job where you will be successful and you will be, you will achieve your objectives of going remote. So that's what objective is. And the community is live. You can just go to remote.cutshort.io to join the community and to stay updated on the next initiatives, next meetups, and more interactions with the community members. We already have around 1,200 members as of now, and it's going to rapidly go up. So just to give you some perspective of for those who have not explored remote, who don't know much about remote, this is the growth trend of what remote jobs are going through. And as you can see, it is exponentially growing in terms of how many companies are hiring remote today. From what started in 2013 as perhaps just an experiment, is going more and more mainstream with more and more companies looking for remote employees. And a lot of companies have dedicatedly set up their remote hiring initiatives. This is a very recent stat from We Work Remotely, one of the major and popular platforms to find remote jobs. As per them, they started with 317 jobs in 2013, and in 5 years, the jobs have become seven times. And they estimate around 70% of the workforce in the modern economy will be remote in some way, at least 5 days in a month. So that's a big shift. And already 63% of US companies have remote workers. So in 5 years, we should fully expect this number to go beyond 90. And that's a big opportunity opening up. And a lot of reasons why we all are excited. The guests that we have, everybody is so excited about remote. Is not just the economic opportunities which are going to come up with that, but the whole other benefits for the overall modern workforce. And we're going to talk about that in a little bit. Uh, the trends in remote work, as I said, the growth is pretty healthy. It's growing exponentially every day, every month. And we did an analysis previously in the previous meetup. I shared this information. Basically, uh, we are seeing around 500 jobs per month added on the main job portals. Software development happens to be the most popular category for remote jobs, but it also appears that roles where you need more distribution or global reach, like support, customer success, designing, data kind of engineering or data labeling and data analysis, all those roles are growing as well. So fully expect this to also grow and get more broader over a period of time. Uh, Most of there are a lot of companies who are fully remote right now. So all of their job functions, right from tech to marketing to data, everything is kind of remote. So there's a lot of opportunities like that, and a lot of companies are actually becoming day one remote ready, and that's a big opportunity as well. Most of the jobs are for experience level of more than 3 years, because people expect you to be working remotely, independently. You should know what you're working on, and you should be able to deliver and deliver stuff on your own. So typically, experience level is 3+ years. Salaries are definitely a big factor. You typically get 2x or 3x salaries of domestic Indian salaries if you work remotely. Uh, all this is good, but as we established in the last meetup, the bar of remote jobs is quite high. Companies are going remote because they are facing talent scarcity in their domestic market, which means that they are looking for very high quality, very high relevant talent, which means that applying for jobs is not going to be enough. We all need to understand uh, what kind of roles and what is the bar of quality and what is the other stuff that we need to know before we apply. So if the bar is high, then we need better preparation to do that. And there's some predictions that we made last time. So all of that is going to make this whole thing much more exciting over a period of time. Uh, and this meetup that we are doing today, as I said, this is the second meetup for this community. Uh, in all our community meetups, we don't want to make it very structured, very rigid. We want to make it casual and social. You have, if you look at your event window, you will find a widget or section at the bottom, which is called Q&A. So you can ask any questions there, and those questions will make it easy for us to answer those questions and present those questions to the guests that we have today. There might also be polls that our team will create for you. So for the guests to understand you better, and audience also to understand who is there in today's meetup, please go and answer the polls as well. Feel free to use chat to interact with each other, introduce yourself, your whatever thoughts you have about remote. And if you really have a neat insight that you want to share or you want to ask a question, we have the ability to actually invite you online, and you can come live on camera as well. So that's what this meetup, the way we are going to do this meetup. We have three special guests. I'm going to introduce them or let them introduce themselves very quickly. But before that, as I said, after the meetup, join the community and we'll give the next steps about how to actually get and prepare yourself for the remote jobs. So we have three special guests today. Let me ask and request them to introduce themselves a little about what they're doing and what is their experience in terms of the remote on the remote side. What they're doing, while they are introducing themselves, I'll invite the third speaker, so you're also to be on the camera. So why don't you go? Why don't maybe I can request Lance first to introduce himself, and then Gil can follow next.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Lance Robbins. I am the founder at Remotely Connected, a remote-specific technical recruiting firm, and I serve as a consultant also to distribute consulting, working on rural economic development solutions that we're trying to find using remote work. So bringing more jobs and helping people get connected to those jobs is a big part of my everyday work, and I'm happy to share a little bit of insight from what I picked up over the years.
Okay, great. Welcome, Lance.
Thank you.
Okay, Gil.
Gil, you want to go next?
Sure, yeah. My name is Gil Gildner, and I'm the co-founder of Disco Sloth. We're a small technical marketing consultancy. We do a lot of paid search and analytics, and mostly work with kind of mid-size firms in the US, Australia, UK. I've been working remotely for about 10 years now, in roles from a freelancer to an employee to now a company co-founder, and recently wrote a book on making remote work, which is oriented towards small companies and that are kind of trying to build remote teams. But I'm happy to jump in on any questions you guys might have. My focus is mostly on the marketing side rather than development, but yeah, excited to be here.
All right. So, hey everyone, I'm Suyokyo, and I work for Automatic. So that's the company behind WordPress.com, Jetpack, and WooCommerce. I've been working remotely for around 7 years now, and I got my first remote job when I was 16, and I joined Automatic when I was 18, and I've been working there for the past 2.5 years now. A little bit more about Automatic. So we are basically a group of 1,000 plus people, all working remotely from their home offices, from cafes, from pretty much anywhere with a stable internet connection. And while I don't have a lot of insights on the hiring part, but I'll be happy to answer on how you can be successful when you're working remotely, and basically bust some myths about remote work, hopefully. So feel free to ask any questions.
Okay, so let's see in what's happening in the polls. So we asked people about what's their primary work area, and it seems 55% of the audience today is from software development, so techies. Then we have around 11% people from data, 8% from marketing, 5.8% from customer success and service, and we have others, which is 17%. So I'd love to know what this others actually is. Uh, Second question that we asked is about their experience with working remote, and it looks like 30% people here have worked remotely. 22% people have not worked fully remote, but they have worked at a job which allows them to do work from home. And there are around 48% people who have not worked from home or remotely. So that's a big section of people. So just to get give you an idea about what kind of audience we are dealing with here. And more questions will come there soon. In the question widget, we already have a lot of questions. So while I look at those questions, why don't we start with some discussion? I think Gil is already responding to the questions happening, so that's great. When you get time, you can just look at the questions, and if you find them relevant, you can just answer that. Anybody actually in the audience can also answer the questions here. And while we are looking at the questions, and if I find anything interesting specifically for one of the guests that we have, I'll put that question to them. But we have some structure, so we have thought about a few points that typically come up when people have this discussion around remote work. So first one is the pros of remote, and I think a lot of times a lot of us actually know the pros of remote. Uh, so I will not go much deeper into it, but maybe uh, since all of you are working remotely, what do you think is the biggest uh, benefit of remote work that you enjoy?
Getting to work in your PJs. So jokes aside, the sort of flexibility that remote works allows you to be, able to be spend time with your family and basically your loved ones while you're also working. That's definitely one perk that I enjoy most about working remotely.
So from my perspective, there's two ways to answer this. One is on a personal, more micro level, and one is the greater, big picture. And so personally, right, the time that I get to invest in my family, my wife, and my kids, um, is a huge benefit for our family. Not taking that commute time, reinvesting it in my home. It's one of the primary drivers for me as a remote worker. But then if I pan back and look at the big picture, remote work is in a position to make impacts globally in terms of diversity of teams in the workforce, environmental impact, in infrastructure of urbanized regions, reducing the strain on the commute, economic development in depressed or underdeveloped places, like my hometown, right? I live in a small town, 4,000 people here, poverty, undereducation, poor healthcare. Remote work could be a game changer for the people in my town. So there's a number of reasons beyond the personal that I like to point out in terms of remote work benefits.
Great.
Yeah, for me, the personal aspects, I think, are almost universal to everyone who gets to work from home. You get to spend a lot more time not driving or in the subway. And additionally, to me, it's more of the independence and the freedom that you get for structuring your workday, for being more self-driven. And if you are the sort of person that likes that, remote work is the way to go. You're not tied to specific, coming into the office at, 9 a.m. and leaving at 12, depending on where you're working. Sometimes hours do matter, but that independence and freedom is really valuable to me. If I need to run an errand, I can just run an errand, and that's not always possible.
Okay, so great. So I think the pros of remote and the benefits are pretty well known, and we already covered that. But now there are questions that people have and concerns that people have in terms of, you know, work shifting away from a normal office job where you meet your boss, you meet your team every day, and then you shift away and you're working remotely from home, and you are kind of siloed. So questions can emerge and typically are around growth. So if I work remotely, uh, what will be my growth prospects? Because when I work with people, I can influence them. I can, you know, you know, I can get more growth opportunities around different roles. But when I'm working remotely, will I have the same growth potential in terms of moving to better roles or managing and the whole career progression thing? So what do you guys think about that?
So I think it all depends on what organization you're working for, because there are lots of companies that might just consider remote workers as the secondary workforce for the company. So that is definitely a genuine concern. But more and more organizations are leaning towards what's called distributed workforce at this point, and where they try and make their whole workforce as distributed as possible. So you don't really have that. Basically the separation that makes you think like you're not worth the same amount, or the company doesn't value you enough as a regular employee as opposed to a remote employee. So I think yeah, again, so it really comes down to what organization you're working on.
So I think that's a very, very important point. We talked about 70% US companies already having remote workforce, but they are not all equal. And the more I see, the more I analyze, I'm finding more and more companies who are designed for remote from day one. So the kind of company you choose to work with is very important. If remote is central to their entire way of working, if they think remote is something which is not reduced to getting people when they are not able to find talent, and they think it's something which is more strategic for them, then I've seen a lot of companies actually making great policies around remote work. And then the question around most of the questions around the downsides of remote, like growth, uh, job safety, kind of culture you will have, all of that is addressed by the company. So I think it's important to understand what companies are offering, the roles, and what kind of remote attitude or strategy they have. Anything you like to add to it, Lance? Or
Yeah, I'd like to follow up on that because I actually see career networking as one of the huge cons of remote work if it's not handled properly. Um, like you said, each company has different approaches, and being in a good company definitely helps. But I see it can be very difficult if you only work remotely to network with other peers, even outside your company, which that's how you get good jobs. People knowing people who can find you good jobs. So you really have to try really hard to network and stay social when you're in a remote role. You have to talk to other people. You have to make friendships, even if it's via video. Otherwise, you could be potentially trapped, not knowing anywhere else to go. So that's one of the potential downsides of remote work. But it's something that can be conquered as long as you're aware of it.
I think something that you called out a little bit ago about remote work policy, right? There's a lot of companies, particularly the big corporations with lots of employees that are beginning to adopt remote, and they're just trying to figure it out as they go, really, right? This is all pretty new stuff. So, on the one hand, you can't fault them too much, but on the other hand, it's important to, if you're considering a remote position, ask about the remote work policy. Is there a remote work policy in place? Because unfortunately, we see a lot of discrimination happening. Remote workers are viewed as less desirable in some cases, right? If it's a remote first company, that's not going to be the situation. But if this is a hybrid organization, sometimes even if it's unintentional, the remote worker gets the short end of the stick. So confirming a remote work policy that's going to protect from some of that discrimination, it would be a good thing to do before signing up.
Okay, and we have asked this question in the polls section as well. So, guys, please go and take the poll if you have not. But one thing apart from the growth and the risk factor of remote job is about learning. So when you are working in a close proximity with your mentor, there is much higher bandwidth you can interact with them, and then they can use a bandwidth to show you in a board or actually show you on a piece of paper how things work and stuff like that. But with remote, the commitment or the commitment and the energy that person needs to tell you about something, it kind of goes up. So do you think in terms of uh, making your team share more knowledge and more information, more concepts, and some sort of mentorship, especially when you don't have 10-year experience, when you're 2 or 3 year experience person and you want more mentorship as well. So how do companies and how do people take care of that? So Yoga, do you have any insights into it? So when you were working at Automatic, since it is a remote
Mhm.
first sort of a company,
Yes.
what kind of
So
have they taken any special mentorship or learning kind of things where they get you in a team, uh, at together the team they get a team together, the mentors together, and help you build your learning path better? Do you have something like that?
So, yep, from the perspective of Automatic, what I can tell you is when you join the company, you're assigned a mentor. That mentor will basically make sure that you know all about the company and you are free to ask any questions to them. And apart from that, there's this thing called there's a stipend for which you can actually invest on your own personal growth. You can purchase books, you can purchase courses, and the company will cover its costs for you. And then we have this division and team wide thing called Today I Learned Friday, TIL Friday as we call it. So it's basically a post where everyone from each division comes up and comments what they learned this Friday. And we basically hope that it sort of promotes the knowledge throughout the company, and it definitely does the job. And apart from that, you also have weekly team hangouts. So what you can refer to as a weekly team meeting in a general non-remote environment. It's weekly hangout in mostly with remote companies. So the complete team gets together and you talk about pretty much anything, and that's also covers the personal growth and what you learn and what you think is important to know company wide. So yeah, that's how Automatic does it. And I think the TIL Friday thing is something that remote companies should be doing more often to make sure that the information is being circulated and folks are feeling comfortable when it comes to personal growth.
Yeah, so it's again one of the endorsements for the fact that all of these things are actually, not so much of an issue if the company has sorted their remote structure very well. So I think that's what Lance was trying to make, that same point, that if the company thinks remote is strategic, then they will have sorted these issues that typically come up. So let's move to the next, which is the most interesting part and the biggest focus for today's meetup is how do you actually find and apply for remote jobs? We all have applied for normal jobs, and the typical process can range from asking your friends, going to job portals, going to places or platforms like CutShort, and interacting with the companies there. But when it comes to remote, does that process change? And what extra a person needs to be aware of, which is not the case in a normal physical job? So, you guys, have any specific thoughts around that? What do companies look for, which they're not looking for in a normal office job, but they're looking for when they are hiring for remote?
Sure. How much time can we take? We
Yeah,
have another 30 minutes, right?
yeah, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is an area that I think about a lot, right? Because even as I can see in the screen, the feed on the right-hand side, everybody wants a remote job, right? 80% of the workforce says, yes, they would prefer it if they could work more remotely. So there's not enough jobs being posted to accommodate 80% of the workforce. So there's a huge supply and demand problem, right? A lot of people want to work remote, and there's just not, the job creation for remote opportunities is not keeping up with the demand. So that should tell you right away that you're going into a very highly competitive and flooded market when it comes to inbound applications. So you're going to have to, one, make your inbound application stand out, and for two, work outside the traditional inbound application process. So first of all, Gil and I were talking about this yesterday. Some people will submit their resume and they will pack it as full as they can with every keyword that they think will match. And that might mean reducing the font down to like a 7 or smaller, right? Where we have all these technical skills crammed onto one page. And as a recruiter who is in the context of a remote recruiter, right, filtering through possibly thousands of resumes per role. And so if your company has 3 or 4 roles open, you have 3 or 4 resumes, 1,000 resumes to look through. It's just overwhelming. And so if your resume is difficult in any way to see the value in a very short notice, it's likely to be passed on, even though you may have the skill set. It's too much to process every bit of information on a resume. So I'll pause there. If any of you other guys want to jump on to that topic, I've got plenty more to talk about. But
yeah, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. But for example, earlier this year, we posted, I think around March or April, we posted an opening for a paid search specialist, an entry-level position. And over the next, we're still getting applications for it somehow, but we filled it within a couple of months. But in those 2 months, I think we had almost 1,000 applications. And We just used, job boards and LinkedIn, your typical. 90% of them I was just going through, and it had skill sets listed on the resume. Kind of like Lance said, just, they're trying to get the keywords in the engines. So, they're trying to make it past the filters. But, I don't really care about skill sets because you can learn a skill set if you're smart. And most people are. Most people can learn a skill set. The ones that did stand out to me told stories. And the resume kind of indicated that they were the sort of person that would work well within our culture, the sort of person that liked travel, or the sort of person that did adventurous things. Because if you're going to be, well suited to a remote role, you're going to be a weird person. You're going to be, kind of a adventurous, unique person. You don't want to go to the office every day. So there's a lot of subtleties in an application that really, it's more personal. If you can make a connection with a recruiter or hiring manager at this company, you're going to do far better. If you have a social media profile and a website that's well crafted, I think you're going to have a lot better chance. I think Lance is exactly right there. Like, you just can't fill in all the skill sets and hope that you will stand out, because there's 1,000 other people and probably some of them have better skill sets.
So if I were to summarize that, what essentially you're saying is, instead of saying what have you done, say or express who you are also, in addition to that. If you are
Sure.
able to bring your individuality in the entire application, that what makes you different, what makes you, how can I know you as a human? I think that human side is very important as well, apart from your just skills or the work that you have done.
And I would say tell that story in as few words as possible, with as easy to read formatting as possible.
Correct. Do you guys also look at credibility in some way, like which companies they have worked in? If you find the name familiar, that like this person has worked in IBM or Oracle, that might make it more relatable and more acceptable, or do you think that doesn't play a big role? If you know the stuff and you have been able to differentiate yourself, then that kind of is, because it's a global thing. Everybody knows the local companies in their market, but I don't know which companies are good in Israel right now. I don't know that.
Depends on who's hiring, right? Maybe the smaller marketing firm is less concerned with whether they worked at Amazon or IBM. But if you have, a larger organization, if you've worked at one of their competitors, that's probably going to help stand out, because the ecosystem, the industry. So yes and no is the answer to your question.
And how much do you guys look at the social media? I think LinkedIn definitely everybody would be checking out. But in addition to that, is there something else? Facebook, Insta as well?
I
Blog?
look at LinkedIn, but I don't care about other social media. But we're a small company, so a larger enterprise firm might have different filters. Who knows?
I'm also pretty dedicated to just checking LinkedIn, maybe Twitter if you're just kind of curious to get a little more information. But outside of that, LinkedIn is really the place where you can showcase yourself. And this is really connected to something else that I want to talk about, is that you need to build yourself as a personal brand. Again, if there is a tremendous amount of traffic, of competition for this one particular job, if I'm the recruiter, right, and I see your resume is beautifully formatted, it tells a good story in a short amount of time. I was able to to digest that information. Then I go to your LinkedIn profile, seeing that you're creating some content, you're engaging with other leaders in the space, in the industry that you want to work in. You're providing some sort of information about it. You show that you're learning. Like, those things are going to cause you to stand out as well. I think LinkedIn gives you a little bit more of an opportunity to showcase values that are going to be important for your prospective employer.
Yeah, I think in my experience, I've seen LinkedIn to be massively underutilized by people who are looking for jobs. They just think a profile is enough, which just is a kind of a resume of or description of the titles and the work they did. What I always gravitate towards when I look at LinkedIn profile of a prospective employee is their articles, if they've written any, their social activity that they're doing. If you are a data guy, if you are an engineer, if you are a marketer, I want you to share something about your work. I want you to be thinking about what you're working on. If you can write something on LinkedIn which summarizes your thought process, that is a big thumbs up that you had. And I think it goes to the same point that who you are, and that part is more demonstrated or expressed if you I get to see your social activity, which is around your professional interest, and you can just write simple LinkedIn articles where you demonstrate something, and then if you even if you don't have a lot of friends and connections, that works well for recruiters when they look at your profile. One thing I also look at is when they comment on something, I look at what they commented on. So I look at 6 or 10 comments that they did on some social media thing. And if they seem to be desperately applying everywhere, so you have these kind of posts that, I'm hiring for this, comment interested, and they're typing and writing everywhere, that just turns me off that, they are not sure about what they want. And they're just trying, to spray and pray.
Can I talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, it touched a nerve, it looks like.
So you're thinking about this. I've even seen it today, right in the feed on the right hand side of the screen, right? It's this concept of I want, give me. And if I'm going to hire somebody, I don't want them to be a taker from my organization, right? I want to give to them as a valued employee, but I also want them to be a giver. I don't know if you've read the book, The Go Giver. I would recommend that highly. It's an attitude of where can I add value? Where can I be helpful? And so if your approach is, posting your contact information in desperation that someone will give you something, you're not likely going to find success when it comes to the hiring process. But if you are posting valuable information that shares your expertise without expectation of return, right? You're giving because you want to move the information forward. You want to be helpful. You'll comment on other people's posts who are looking for work. You'll share when you see somebody that has a need. Those kind of things are going to open opportunities for you outside of the inbound application pipeline that just saying, please give to me, will never open for you.
Yeah, I think anything where you're saying, I want this and wherever you show signs of desperation and something you badly need, you're never going to get that. I mean, it's almost like dating. So you have to show your value and be valued. You need to be exclusive. If you just open out and say, I'm available, a lot of people are sharing their phone numbers on the right, that this is what I'm doing and call me. And that is never going to happen. It's always going to be you demonstrate your strengths and say, I'm actually hard to catch. And then you kind of intrigue recruiters. And that's how actually things happen. So I would actually, I think Lance is, pretty bang on there, that you need to understand and get in the mindset of what value you can bring rather than give me this from your company. One question I think is also be asked in the Q&A section is time zone. So a lot of jobs that are coming in today from remote first companies or good remote companies, they are requiring some time zones, and typically they are, since most of the companies today who are hiring remote are based in North America, the time zones requirement seems to be North America and Australia or something like that. So how does someone who is applying not from these countries, can the person be still considered, or this is a very hard requirement that these companies have?
A lot of companies are, like Lance said earlier, remote work is very new and their policies are very just all over the place. But what a lot of companies I'm seeing are figuring out is that they will start with some core operating hours. And that might just be like 2 hours of overlap. I worked for a company a few years ago, which had about 40, it was a startup based in Portland that had about 40 members all over the globe. But they just had 2 hours early morning Pacific time of core overlap. So everything else, the rest of the communication was asynchronous. It's in Slack or in emails. And so people still work 8 hours a day, but a good remote company will be flexible about those hours. Most remote companies, I don't think Automatic would be like this, where they expect that, in India, you would be up from, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. It's, you might have a bad company that expects that, but that's not where you want to work.
Yeah, so what I can add on there is that, as Gil said, good companies will ideally let you decide your own schedule. So, for example, if you're going to be working in a customer success job, there has to be some schedule that needs to be in place to meet the certain 24/7 availability requirements per se. So, how we tackle it is we have our happiness engineers decide their schedule 2 weeks in advance. You can put in your availability, and then out of those 8 hours of availability you get scheduled for 6 hours by the scheduling team. So you still get to decide what time you'll be working on, what time zones you're going to work on. So yep, if you find yourself in a company where you strictly have to be working at midnight, it's probably a good idea to leave that company.
And sometimes there will be requirements in terms of what time zones people can be in, because there are things they can't control. Like the client lives in Pacific time US. And so because of that, they may not go beyond European time zones, European African time zones, to create that overlap. And so when you see restrictions like, America's only or US/Europe only, it's not because, at least I can't say because I'm not them, but in most cases, it's not because they want to exclude other people. It's because there's a requirement of overlap with a client that you're going to have to be in live meetings with, and they don't want to ask you to do that at 2 a.m. It's not polite.
So even if a remote worker is okay with that, with logging in at 3 a.m., very early or very late night, companies generally don't want that, or they don't prefer that. They don't want they don't want to burn you out.
I can actually answer a part of that. So I can't generalize this, but more often than not, if you're going to be working late hours, you will eventually burn out. I have tried doing this. I worked midnights for a month. I was super productive for a month, and then the next month came, and I did not want to get up to do my job. So yes, this is a genuine concern, and in the long run, I guess recruiters wouldn't want to hire someone who's willing to work that hours. So yeah.
Okay, great. So let me just look at the polls and see if you're missing something there. Okay, I'll take questions. There are 40 already. So while we discuss the next topic, I'm going to just curate the questions a little. And the next is about, so this is what we discuss is how to apply. So the tips to follow when you're applying. The next question is about interviewing. So let's say you applied and you got shortlisted, and now you are going to get interviewed first by a recruiter or by somebody who is going to the screening, and then by the actual hiring managers and the interviewing team. So questions typically are around, what kind of how am I going to be evaluated? So the accent of how to interact with people who are not in we are not the same culture. So cultural differences, accent differences. Should I try to should I try to speak the same accent? I would not recommend that. But should I try to do this accent matching, or should I try to? And it's a cultural overlap like pop culture. So you have different stuff that people who know in their culture very well, but you don't understand the slangs and all of that. So do you think in interviewing, what kind of things that person has to take care of?
Um, Ideally, I think remote companies will allow you to choose how you want to go through with the interview. Video, for example, should not be a strict requirement, in my opinion. For example, we offer our candidates to do it async. We offer to do it on Slack over text. So that definitely eases up the person on the other side. But I'm not a recruiter. I haven't worked with the hiring team, so I'll let Lance and he'll take this one.
So something comes to mind, and I want to get Gil's perspective on this too, as a hirer, right? But if you feel the need to maybe change who you are to avoid discrimination, then that's not likely a company that you want to work with, right? Distributed teams should be embracing true, authentic diversity within their crowd. It makes teams better. It absolutely does. I mean, this is documented and proven. So, if you feel the need to try to come off as different than who you are, you're not going to do yourself any favors, and it's really better for the team if they'll be open to hiring a number of different people.
Absolutely. One of my employees is from Eastern Europe, and she lives in Moldova. She's excellent. She used to work for Google. She's super smart. She celebrated Christmas 3 days ago because in Orthodox calendar, it's on January 7th. She is her own person. Yeah, that's awesome. She takes off her holidays. She has her own culture. If she had tried to fake it and become, a fake American, I would have figured that out before too long, and she might have not lasted. You have to be who you are. If you're changing yourself, the company will find out. It won't be good. It won't be easy for anyone. Don't match your accent. Just speak as clearly as you can, just like I tried to. Your accent doesn't matter. It's your productivity and your values in your work. And any good remote company won't care.
And as far as the hiring, like that interview round, one thing that I would recommend, right, is if this is going to be a video call. I know, like you said, with Automatic, they give some options. A lot of companies don't. It's going to be a video call. Make sure if they're using Zoom and you've not used it before, please install Zoom ahead of time. Do a test run. Make sure your audio and your video work as expected, and keep your video on while you're having that initial conversation. That you'd be surprised at how many folks either just call in with their phone or keep their video off. And it's a little bit awkward, right? I'm here with my video on, but I can't see them. It needs to be a good two-way communication situation.
I had one interview with a guy who was in the subway with his phone, like video chatting, and I couldn't even hear him. And I'm just like, no, this is just a disaster. But I would add to that, like, even if you're uncomfortable on video, like, so am I. It's just awkward. But if your work is going to require you down the road to be on video every day, you might need to get used to it. It's kind of the norm for remote companies. So make sure all your junk is not in the background. Clean up your room. You don't have to wear pants, but you just got to wear a shirt.
That's what we are doing right now.
Exactly.
That's a secret. So I think especially for Indian and anybody from this side of the continent, punctuality. I think we are a sucker for not being on time, not showing up on time. So if something is scheduled for 9 p.m., then be there by 8:50. Because there will always be problems in getting your video thing working, your code sharing thing working, and recruiters and especially technical team will be very short on time. So it's always good to be early, prepare as Lance said, prepare with the tools, be comfortable with the tools so that when it is online, you just don't waste your time, because they have, as Gil was saying earlier, there's so many applicants, and the more time you waste, it will only hamper your chances. So it's always good to be on time and be prepared. But I think that's a great advice. Don't try to fake, don't try to match accent. Be as clear as possible while you're communicating. As Gil also said, video is not our thing. As humans, we are not at our best when we're talking to screens and pinholes. We always want to talk to humans. So everybody's kind of awkward. Next question is around great. So you applied, you presented who you are skilled, you got through the interviews, and now you got offer, and now you're working remotely. Uh, how to actually make it work? And I think you already have a book on it. So how to make it work? What things to take care of? We about this topic about how to do career networking. So how not to be left behind, how to build rapport with your boss, set expectations clearly with the boss and with your team, and be actually successful working with the team that you're working with. So any tips around that? So Yogya.
I have a lot of
Oh,
tips. I don't know where to start.
I thought Gil wanted to go. So,
um,
uh,
maybe you can go. Let me think
Gil,
a
you
little
want to
bit.
go? Oh,
So actually,
all
let
right.
me start. I
Uh,
worked remotely for my boss for 3 years. He was in the US, I was in India, and most of our work used to happen over email. I was into product management and product marketing, and he would shoot me an email at in his time zone. I'll in my work day, I will just work on it. There will be some overlap in the initial morning and late nights. So that email exchange was the primary communication media, and the expectation was to be very clearly set. So I exactly knew and exactly wanted to make sure I understand what I'm working on and what my goals are. So I think a lot of times, even with the physical office teams, you don't know what your expectations of your team and of your boss are. And the further you drift away from those expectations, even in a physical office normal job, things become murky, and in a remote it will become catastrophic. So I think setting expectations and communicating very clearly about your progress and lack of it is very important. So if you're stuck somewhere, over communicate and say, hey, this is where I'm stuck and I need your help to move forward. If you are stuck, ideally try to find way around your impediments. You can actually move forward, take local calls, and if you're not able to make those calls, then at least be very clear about that this is what I'll need tomorrow if I want to work on this. So I think that expectation management and communication, I think those things I learned to be very important when you're working remotely.
yeah, I definitely agree there because communicating is definitely one of the major things that you need to take into consideration when you're going to be working remotely. It's always better to over communicate and just keep asking questions until and unless every single thing is clear to you. And apart from that, one of the things that can affect is that when once you start working remotely, let's say you've been working for what 3 months, you sort of get into a comfort zone where you, for example, you get up from bed and you go straight to your office, your home office or whatever you've set up, and you start working. And there's not a healthy disconnect often from work and personal life. So that's something that needs to get managed, and to be successful as a remote worker, you need to have a clear boundary. You need to know when to stop and you need to disconnect from the work. So what works for me personally is, even after I've been working remotely, what I do is I get up at 9 a.m. and let's say if I have a shift starting 10 a.m., I'll make sure my day ends at 5 p.m. After that, I am not going to be coming back to my computer to check Slack or email or anything like that. Only thing that I'm gonna do is just go to sleep or maybe hang out with friends or anything. But I make it a point not to get back to work after that because my official working hours are over. So only if you have something important, I'll probably just answer it tomorrow. So I think that disconnect is also very much necessary when it comes to working remotely.
Yeah, one of the things we do at DiscoSloth is we have a stipend that we pay that covers either we would cover several drinks at a coffee shop or a co-working membership. Just because I think it's very important that the person, I know I need personally, this might not work for everyone, but I have to get out of the house to work. Whether I'm traveling or from home, my home office, I spend a couple hours a day, at a coffee shop or the library or wherever for that disconnect, because there's something about actually putting your pants on and going somewhere. It's like a formal, like I will go here, I will do 2 hours of focused work, and that really helps from your personal perspective, kind of separating it so you're not on your couch and Netflix is right here and you're kind of working, and then you're not enjoying the movie and you're not doing a good job. So it's better to just to compartmentalize, I think. And like you said earlier, over communicate. And I think I saw Lance chat on the side, get used to text communication. And that is really, really important. Most important information will be shared via text, not by your manager coming around the cubicle and telling you something. So that getting really used to text communication via email or Slack or whatever is really important. And that will help your mental, well-being and focus to be far better. I think once you know where everything is, it's in your email, you're working here, like that's the end of your day. Yeah.
I think any tips on how to improve the text communication? Because one of my gripes is that people today and the Slack generation, you have so much of stuff to catch up on when you actually get online on Slack, and there's small talk happening around you, and the art of communicating something in a very crisp manner in a written text, in a written word, is sort of not very common these days. So, uh, in
Yeah.
I come from industry where we used to heavily deal with in email, and the you had to write good emails, short, to the point, communicate what exactly you need without any confusion and ambiguity. But I think that is sort of the real-time nature of Slack, is making it more like you decided something, the 5 minutes later something is changing. So it's too much of live stream of events happening. So I think the ability to communicate over text is something which is important for the new generation and new remote workers to actually get strong at. So how to do that?
We actually we try to triage communication, and what that means is we have basically 3 channels of talking to each other, our small team, and we triage based on urgency or importance. So if something is strategic and detailed and long term, we send a long email, and you don't have to respond to that right away. That waits till the next day or the next week. If something needs to happen today or tomorrow, is fairly urgent, but nothing is burning down, we'll use chat. We'll use Google Chat. If something is an emergency, it has to be fixed right now, like wake up at midnight, then we get on the phone or we video chat. But we kind of separate things in matter of urgency. Like it has to be fixed now, let's get on the phone. This is something we need to do next month, let's send a long email. So it's, and then chat for the in-between stuff. We're not going to do long-term strategic stuff over chat, over Slack or something. That would just be a mess. But that's just how we have done it, and not every company does that for sure. But that's kind of how we've tried to solve some of those problems.
One of the text-based communication things that drives me nuts, and I posted there in the feed, is nohello.com. If you're using if you're using Slack or some other text-based chat thing, please don't just say hello. Don't say hi, how are you? That happens to me all the time. Hi, how are you? That gave me no action item, gave me no information, and offered me no value. All it did was distract me from what I was doing. It took my attention, and it was a waste of time. And now I have to wait for the actual question. So go ahead and put everything you want to say in, and then push enter. And then you can wait asynchronously while whoever you're communicating with will respond.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the things we also try and promote as much as possible, that please don't basically just say a greeting and disappear. Don't wait for the other person to reply. Just put your thing out there and they'll get back to you when they can. So I find it works for the best. And coming back to what Gil said about taking strategic decisions over Slack. So we are a distributed company, so everything is mostly happening over text. What we do is we have this thing called P2. It's basically a WordPress theme, sort of a message board sort of a thing, and all the high level announcements. So each team, each product has its own P2, and all the high level announcement and stuff like that is going to be going into the P2. For example, if something needs pre-planning, it's going to be a P2. If something needs to be searchable throughout the company, it's going to be in a P2. And for any important information, we have division wide channels and overall announcement channels where we basically post something that you definitely need to go through and keep it in the back of your mind. So that's how we've been doing it. It's works pretty much fine, but there can definitely be cases where you feel overburdened by the amount of information that's coming at you. And if you feel that way, that's a good time to disconnect yourself for a while and take a break, stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah, so one of the things that we try to do here in our company, we don't have a lot of remote people, but in general, we try to build writing and documentation skills for people. So people are so comfortable sharing stuff on Slack that they kind of don't prefer writing long form content. So then we ask them to write whatever they're discussing or they're thinking about in a document, and then share a Google Doc. It kind of brings crystallize your thinking better, and you are able to write and communicate something better when you are when you think people are not online, they're going to see it later. Then you have to just provide so much of context that might not actually do it on Slack. So yeah, I think those are important things. I think I'd love to check out what nohello.com does, Lance. uh,
It's
Moving
fun.
to the next part.
Yeah, take a visit.
Well, I'll do that. Okay, so I think I did want to go through the what are the next steps for the people, but before we go there, maybe what we can do is complete the discussion with the guests that we have, and then I can go to the part about CutShort and how what the next steps are for the people. So I'll just look at the questions now. You have already started answering a few. Uh, so I'm just going through the list of questions that we have for the guest, and if there's anything which pops up, I'll just share that with you.
So while you're looking at that, a question that I've kind of seen over and over through the feed in there is like, how do you even get started to get involved in like remote work opportunities? I was talking to a senior remote engineer just this morning. He's based, I think he was in Bangladesh. And I just said, hey, I'm going to talk to a panel of folks. A lot of them going to be in India, and they want to know, how do you get involved to start with? And they said, I would recommend, first of all, is you're an intern, you're coming out of college, get involved with an open source technology. They build open source technology in a way that anyone from anywhere can work on it. So it's like working at a remote company. If you're contributing to the core technologies or some of the tickets on open source technologies, WordPress, for example, he's a WordPress engineer. And so he was sharing that he began to get involved there. And that was really good training for working in a remote organization. And because a lot of the organizations behind the open source technologies are remote, you'll begin to build a network of opportunity. As you, like I was talking about earlier, you bring value, you do something for the community by contributing to an open source project, you'll begin to build a network, and it'll be good training for you. So I would recommend, I know we have a lot of developers on here today, so I wanted to get that in there before they jump off. Find a place where you can contribute to something, likely open source. It'll be good training and it'll be good network building for you.
So I'm looking at the questions. Most of them we have already touched upon. So most of the questions are around availability of a specific kind of a role in remote. So I think that part we can look at later. I think as the jobs start coming in, you can also search on Google that what kind of jobs are being floated. But Lance, do you think the jobs that we see online are, you know, mostly the jobs that are available, or do you think there are a lot of jobs that are not being posted online?
Gil, do you post all your jobs?
He did one.
Yeah,
and he's like,
we post all our jobs.
You post all your jobs. There
Yeah.
are some that are going to be filled with internal, mobility and referrals. But I think most companies are posting jobs. Just a matter of finding where they all are, right? they're scattered. There's a lot of competing job boards. So you'll have to create yourself a spreadsheet and keep track of where you found what. And it's a lot of work to get a job.
Yeah, the competition is insane. For every job opening, I think there are probably 150 interested people, if not 1,500 interested people. So it's very competitive.
And like we said earlier, remote work is pretty new, right? This is a newer thing. And right now we see a lot of tech-driven jobs that are there, but there is a lot of work being done to distribute more jobs that are not tech-focused. And I think in the coming years, this year and beyond, we're going to see more and more jobs that can be done remotely, starting to transition. Even companies that are, strictly physically located today, maybe in the course of the next year or two, are going to start to allow work from home, telework, remote work opportunities for their finance department, their HR department, their legal department. There's no reason for them to be in the office. They can do all their work from a cloud-based, virtual workplace. And so we're going to see more and more. But for now, a lot of it's tech-driven.
Yeah, ultimately, I think if your job is sitting in front of a computer anyway, you might as well work remotely. And I think that will eventually spread into, we're already seeing tech, marketing, a lot of customer service, even though that can be more time-based because you're dealing directly with people, but it's, customer service at an office, you're sitting there with your phone and your screen anyway. You have that at home. So it will get easier and it will spread more, and more companies progressively adopt it. So it will grow, just slower than we'd like, probably.
So there's one question, while working remote, is it required that we need to keep a kind of a timer that counts hours of work?
Um, I personally think your productivity shouldn't really be defined by the number of hours you've worked. So that really depends on what company you're going to be working for. I know for a fact that there are lots of companies that do this and it's perfectly fine. But for example, at Automatic, we don't do this. We trust you to do your job at your best. And if there are any performance related issues or we feel like you're not doing enough, you will have a chat with your manager or HR or basically whatever the hierarchy is at that point. So, um, I mean, it's not something that is specific to, every single job.
Yeah, we don't track hours. I don't care if people work 2 hours a week or 60 hours a week. I just have no idea, actually. As long as their work gets done, I think they probably work far less than 40 hours a week, and that's okay. Most companies don't care. Most remote companies shouldn't care.
So how do you define the quantum of work or the results that people should be getting in a week, and then you let them work on their own schedule? So how do you do that? You do that. I think you were saying earlier that people uh, set their objectives or goals for every week, and then they try to achieve it in whatever time frame that they can. That's how it works.
Uh, no, not really. So what happens is that there's a division-wide expectation of what needs to be done, and you are sort of supposed to go through that expectation and meet it. But your individual performance is always going to be a conversation between you and your team lead, because you're your team lead and you will work together to set a clear and specific goal for yourself. Each individual goal is going to be different, so that's just the amount of time that a team lead needs to invest and make sure that each individual goal is catered for that specific individual. And that goal is set after keeping into consideration the whole division wide expectation. And then you are basically expected to reach that goal, if that makes sense.
Okay, one question which I think is perhaps the last question, and most of the other questions that are there are for cut short. So I'll take those separately. But one question is around technical discussions that for anything deeper, maybe this person, Praveen, has put it in terms of technical discussion, but it could be a design discussion, it could be a strategy discussion, it could be marketing discussion. So Gil, and when you work with remote people, any deeper discussion around something where you find if you had a team in your office, it would be very easy for you to pull them in a room, do a whiteboard and show them, and brainstorm with them that this is how things will work. How to do those kind of high impact, high bandwidth kind of communications? Do you use whiteboarding? How do you take care of that kind of stuff?
I do actually think it's best to do in person. That's one thing that is video will never break through that barrier. And if it's possible, it's always good to have a bunch of people in a whiteboard, but it's not always possible. And in that case, we do a video chat just like this with Zoom or something, and we just discuss. It's probably not ideal, and it's very difficult, in my opinion, to get, to sense body language and how people are really feeling, and but it's just the best we can do. So for for long-term discussions like that, for really deep, detailed discussions, you almost always want to get, see people's faces and talk back and forth. I don't think you can do that via Slack.
Yeah. So I think what we have done when we do these kind of technical discussions or strategic discussions around something, typically there's somebody who initiates a discussion, and that person actually documents the entire thing about why we are doing, what is the objective, and lays it down very clearly in terms of different sections of the whole discussion. And then we ask people that their discussion is going to happen tomorrow or day after tomorrow, so be prepared. And people go through the document, and document is supposed to be information. It should have the enough information about people to actually take them to the whole thought process of why we're doing, what is the objective, and what is the problem we are facing. And then by the time you actually do the meeting like this, on a video call, people have much better idea about what exactly is the meeting about. Then they have already done the homework, and then it becomes much easy because then you just have to, coordinate the entire effort and not, just start the whole discussion from scratch. So that has helped us. In our case, actually, it helped. We had to take the remote approach because we started getting busy, and there was no room and no bandwidth for all of us to actually get together in even while we work in the same office, to actually find time overlap to actually do the discussion in a very impromptu manner that we used to do earlier when we were a small team. So now as we are growing, people are working, some people are not, they're busy in doing something else, and it's very difficult for you to actually, even in the office, get them everybody in the same room. So anyway, we have to organically find a better way of communicating and discussing around a deeper topic. So, necessity is the mother of all invention. I think that's how remote is going to evolve around this. But definitely, as of now, nothing beats physical. But I think it's getting better, and I think since everybody is a stakeholder, people find solutions to it. Okay, so I think we are over the allotted time right now. It's 10:15. So I think we had a great session. Thanks again, Falance, Gill, and Suyogya to join us today. I think there'll be more questions that might come in. So what I'll do is I'll just channel those questions to you. You can join the community as well, guys. Remote.cutshort.io, and in this webinar, we'll start a thread on this meetup. So any questions that were not answered here can be taken in that thread on that community. What we'll do is we'll just post a thread on the community and then give you a link so you can participate and answer a few if there are any follow-up questions from people. And for others, there are a lot of questions about how to actually find jobs and what plans that we have here at CutShort to get you connected with those companies. So don't leave as of now. I'll just let the guest go so that they can get on with their other meetings and stuff that they have. And then I'll be here taking those questions that we have written in the question window, and also tell you a little about what next steps are. So thanks, guys, and hoping to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you so much. We really
Okay.
enjoyed it.
Thank you, and we look forward to hosting you again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so let me share my screen because there are a lot of questions that people have. Okay, I hope you are able to see my screen. So there are lot of questions about what to do next. I hope this interaction with the guests that we had was useful. I found it very enriching in terms of preparing, then thinking about remote and how to actually project yourself while you're applying, and what to take care while you're working remotely, how to become more productive and actually make your career more successful with that. So what I also want to talk about is the next stuff about uh, what CutShort wants to do. So basically, if you noticed and remember the discussion that we had, is basically about the right framework, the right thought process when we apply for remote jobs. It became very apparent that the kind of companies that you want to be applying as while for remote jobs is also very important. So not every company who's floating a remote job might be a good fit. A company who thinks of remote as a more strategic, more central way of working is a right bet for you. So that kind of companies is what we want to get on CutShort when we start approaching them. We want to take it sequentially. We didn't want to jump ahead and just get you more companies and then get you more applications, get you more options where the conversion might not happen. Those options are already available. There's so many jobs that are being floated on so many portals, but those are not working out because they are not addressing the problem in a more fundamental way. And that's what, when we wanted to start our remote offering, we wanted to cover all these important points to make sure that your effort is not wasted. You don't just get a job which says it's a remote job, but you get a great remote job where you actually feel valued and you are able to do great work. So that's why we want to take it sequentially. We already had two meetups, and I think now we are arriving at a more complete picture of what it takes for you to get a great remote job. So first thing is some sort of curation or some sort of information that you should have when you're looking at a remote company, that what this company does, what is the remote policy about, what it is like to work remotely in that company. So that is something we would like to cover when we bring you the remote jobs. Second thing is, which we discussed, is you applied for remote job, but then how do you get differentiated? How do you stand out in the crowd? And I think what we covered in this meetup is some sort of way for you to showcase who exactly you are beyond the resume that you have. So if you look at our solution, what we want to do is two parts. One is on the left, you can see this is how profile looks like on CutShort. So when you apply for any remote job, recruiters are going to see your profile like this. They're going to see, instead of just a flat resume which just has text, what they're going to see is your profile, your important skills for technical roles, and technical skills. You will also get an option to evaluate and validate your skills. For example, in this case, you can see data science and Python. This guy has worked on, and those are verified skills. So on CutShort, you will get the option to validate the skill by either taking a test or by submitting a GitHub code. And if you get past the validation, then these kind of tick marks will appear in your profile. And your specialty, your kind of company that you have worked in, the kind of skill set, the overall profile you have will be also used by the algorithms to rank you better. So you can see in this picture a 93% match score for this person for my job. So as a recruiter, I cannot miss this guy. And that's what we want. So if you're more relevant for a specific job, then you should be ranked higher. If you are more competent by showcasing your skills, then you should be ranked higher. So by doing this, you get much better chances of getting shortlisted and getting the attention of the company, because the company doesn't have to look at all the resumes that they're going to get. Second thing is what we discussed also in this meetup was a need for you to stand out. So what we we are giving you an option of is to provide a video link where you can record a short intro video about your work, about yourself. I know sounds a bit awkward, but a small introduction about what you're doing, and maybe doing a screen sharing and showing your work if you're a developer or marketer. If you can just show your work a little, that would also help. But stand out a little. And when I look at your profile, I just don't look at a profile in an impersonal way, but I also look at how you talk, how you look like, what your passions are. So I think that will complement the profile much better. And next thing is once you have the right companies and you have been able to showcase yourself in the right way, we think that the results will be much better. So the plan that we have for next for rest of you who are interested in applying for remote job and want to explore remote job is we want to bring companies, we want to start approaching companies now. So I think in next few weeks we should have more and more companies starting to come. We already have a few that are coming in, but as I said, we want to really get the best companies who are more focused and more serious about remote to come. So that will start happening in next few weeks. For now, you can start building a profile. So there is a link that has already been given to you. You can just go there and create a profile. You can also apply for other jobs that are there on CutShort. A lot of things about remote are not just it's not just either remote or non-remote. We think it's a progression that you have in a career from a physical job. If you want to transition to a remote job, then there is a much higher bar that you need to have in terms of quality. So if you work with great teams, that makes it easy for you to actually do a transition to the remote job much better. So on CutShort, we have a lot of high quality companies as well. You can join them as well. And while you are thinking about remote and while you are transitioning to a full-time remote job. So we will do more meetups like this, and if you and join the community that we have, so that you can stay in touch about the next steps that we are going to have, and also the next meetups that we're going to have. So that is what we had essentially about this meetup. If you have anything else, you can write in the comments or in the message window, and we can also have a follow-up conversation thread on the remote.cutshort.io community. So also join that, and we can stay in touch there. Now, in terms of the questions that you have, they are questions that most of the questions that I saw are around availability of jobs. So I think I explained that to you. When are the jobs going to come? There'll be a link for you to create a profile, and Neeraj from my team also will send you a link to watch to see what remote jobs are coming to CutShort. So you will have a place where you can find jobs, and you will have a place where you can interact with us. Now, let me just look at the questions a little, the highly voted questions. The first question is around, will remote workers be provided with the same salary and benefits that office worker gets? So this heavily depends on the kind of company you're dealing with, as we discussed in this meetup. So companies who take remote seriously, they understand the value that remote developers or remote workers are going to bring. So they will try to pay you as much as attractively as possible. In fact, if you're looking at Indian salaries and you're working at a remote company in a developed economy, then maybe you'll get 2x, 3x more salary as compared to what you're getting in India. Uh, and as I said, a lot of it depends on the kind of company you're dealing with. Uh, okay, the remote work options for machine learning and AI, this we have to see in the market. Most of the technical roles happen to be around software engineering, but machine learning and AI and data science also uh, should be pretty much remote friendly as well. So there's something we'll have to look at over a period of time. So sorry, Rahul, I can't answer that very straightforwardly right now. Junior developer remote jobs available, where can I find? So in general, remote jobs are not for junior level. You need to have 3-year experience of working independently. Even if you can get that kind of job, I will not recommend that, because to work before you can work remotely independently in a way that best summarizes your capability, I would always request you and encourage you to get more full-time experience working with great people, where you get the right competencies, not only just terms of how you develop software, but also in terms of how to communicate, how to discuss design, and all of that stuff. So, I would highly encourage you to look for high quality companies as of this point, and over a period of time, you can move to a more remote, heavy remote job. So junior developer is, as of now, I don't see that to be the primary focus for remote jobs. Where I can find UX design, so I think this already answered. The jobs will start coming in. How? So that's the same thing. QA, and then which stage of company should be your first remote job company? A small company. So Parth is asking this. A small company with less than 5 employees might give you headaches as many times you had this. So I think this is an interesting question. I think I'm seeing more and more companies who are starting as fully remote from day one. Uh, but you are right that stage of company also matters. An early stage company with a small team, they will be more heavy and fast changes happening around strategy, around the work, and everything else. So remote, since there's a communication overhead to it, it might not work very well, especially if the team is not fully on board with remote. But at the same time, I'm seeing a lot of companies these days who are starting from day one as a remote company. So this is something that they are taking very seriously of how to make remote work, because that's a central part of the talent acquisition of how to build a team. For example, last meetup we had Lalit Mangal from Airmeet, and they started as a fully remote from day one. So for that kind of company who is very focused about remote, you will not have a problem where people are not able to take you or get you on board when they change things. So I would say the safe answer will be yes. Avoid too early stage companies. But if the company is showing a lot of promise in terms of remote work, that they have thought it through very clearly and they have prepared and they've done the homework, they were committed to make it work, then I think it's a shot that you might want to take. So I hope that answers and helps you, Parth. Can we request a video recording of today's event? Okay, this all this will be recorded and this will be available for playback here on the same URL. So you can visit this browser anytime. And we also download this video, post it to YouTube, and post it on the community as well. So you will be able to watch it on community as well. So Naresh, I hope that answers your question. There was a question from Rakesh about communication skills that I already answered. I don't know what Lakshman Raj is saying. Any difficulties in starting a meeting? Okay, and Vaibhav is asking what is the trial remote job on CutShort. So trial remote job on CutShort was actually what we made last time for you to give you a chance to explore CutShort platform before companies come in. But now we have given you a better way of creating a profile directly. So there's a link that has been given, uh, which you can just go to and create a profile. So trial remote job was a kind of a hack that you could apply to a job, create your application and create your profile on CutShort, and we will be able to give you some feedback to get you the get to your profile in a better shape. Okay, so Gaurav is asking when we'll be meeting next. Gaurav, definitely soon. If you want to suggest anything around topics that we should cover in the next meetup, definitely. In addition to doing the meetups, the next step would be for us to actually focus more on getting the right kind of companies here, so that you can, actually find value in the entire remote movement part of it. Meetup, I think we have covered. The first thing was a kind of icebreaker. This meetup was about understanding what it takes to apply for a remote job, how to interview, and how to be successful. Any specific deeper dives that we want to do, please suggest your ideas about what else you are running into while you're looking for remote jobs. So we'll love to cover that in the next meetup. Alongside, as I said, we will be focusing also on getting more companies on board. Akhil, do you think we get chatbot dev remote work? Why not? I think it's a perfectly remote friendly job. Uh, you making it sound almost like it's a freelancing job. It's a project that you want to take. So I just want to clarify here. We're talking about remote full time. We're not talking about freelancing or a contract or sort of a consulting thing here. We're talking about a fully remote employee kind of an arrangement here. So chatbot developer, if the company is heavy into chatbots, maybe it will be a full-time role. And if, for those kind of companies, you might actually have a remote job. But I would not recommend you to be so narrow in your focus when you're looking for remote jobs. So chatbot dev looks to be very narrow to me. Try to expand your skill set a bit more and uh, have try to get a shot at a wider set of jobs, because remote jobs are not many, a lot of people. So it's always good to have more options and build a better, wider competencies that will get you, to the right company. Okay, so I'm just scrolling the chat thing right now. I don't think there's anything else there. Uh, we can this thing will still be open, so we will be able to answer any questions that we post here later on. But right now, after this is over, the focus and the activity will shift to remote.cutshort.io. So please go and join that community, and we can interact and engage over there. So then we have reached the end of this meetup today, and see, we seem to have done a good job in terms of keeping to the time limits. It's 1 hour 30 minutes of highly engaging discussion that we had today. So this is meetup again. I'm not saying this is a webinar, so please try to weigh in with your thoughts. It's just that since we're talking about remote work, we can't be doing physical meetups. So think of this as a community meetup. So from that perspective, try to be more engaging, try to exchange thoughts more, and then we would love to actually interact with you and get to know you guys better, so that we can collaboratively make this thing work for every one of us here. Thanks, Mohammed. Thanks, Akhil. And I'll take your leave now. Thanks again, and I'll see you in the community. Bye bye.